can pick the most sympathetic jury. You can even move them to tears with your opening statement. And you can squeeze in the best possible testimony out of every single witness. But if you do not stick the landing, you can blow the case, right? And if you are not just the lawyer, but also the client, you got some problems, my friend. Closing arguments are usually where you find the best drama in any trial. Arizona versus Lori Vallow has delivered the drama, and she did not disappoint today. Lori Vallow stood up, walked over, put on the old glasses to look smarter. Maybe she needs them, I don't know. And she did the closing argument herself. And my friends, it is must-see TV. At issue, of course, is whether she, as the defendant, conspired with her now dead brother to murder her fourth husband back in 2019. And I will remind you that in her opening statement 2 weeks ago today, the prosecutor, who was, one table over, had to break in 4 times with objections. Pro tip, you are really not supposed to have any objections during your openings. And you're not supposed to have any objections during your closings either. But today, Lori bested even herself. The prosecutor had to step in and object 8 times. 8 during closings. Here, without further ado, is Lori Vallow in all her glory.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state of Arizona has the 100% burden of proving that I committed a crime, a grievous crime, conspiracy to commit premeditated murder of my husband, Charles Vallow. The state has the burden of proving to you that this event was not self-defense. In your jury instruction under the instruction, use of force and crime prevention, the last line reads, if the state fails to carry this burden, then you must find the defendant not guilty. We heard from Detective Inklin's testimony that her goal was to make small talk with us. And
states the facts.
The jury will determine what the testimony did or did not show.
My police interview happened that very morning, and I told the police the events from my perspective at that time. It is admitted into evidence and will answer many of your questions. You did not see Tylee's interview, but we did learn from Detective Inklin that she did an interview that morning as well. You did not see Alex's interview, but we learned that Alex was interviewed that morning by Detective Moffett, the original case agent, whom we did not hear from in this trial. The state chose not to show you those interviews.
Object, Your Honor.
Or let you listen to the 911 call.
The jury shall disregard that last statement. Okay, the jury can only consider what was admitted into evidence.
The walkthrough is not recorded. Detective Duncan also informed us that he does not know if any of the people present wrote a report about it. We can infer from Detective Duncan's testimony and the fact that we don't have an evidence, any body cam footage of the walkthrough and no reports talking about it, that there are none, even though this would be crucial evidence for you, the jury, to have.
Sustained, the jury should disregard that comment. Again, the jury can only consider evidence that was admitted into testimony. I'm sorry, testimony that was admitted into evidence or exhibits that were admitted into evidence.
The state of Arizona has the obligation to show you evidence to prove that this event was not self-defense, as stated by the only 3 witnesses. So why not show the jury all the evidence that they gathered?
Again, sustained. The jury can only consider the evidence and testimony that was admitted into evidence.
We heard a lot in this trial about the Book of Mormon prophet named Nephi. This is the state's evidence to murder over self-defense, and it is utterly ridiculous. We heard from Detective Duncan, who admitted on the stand that he had no idea what I meant in the text message when I said, we will be like Nephi. In Mormon culture, Nephi signifies strong faith, perseverance, and courage.
Right. Sustained.
And if you have not seen the evidence that leaves you firmly convinced that I have committed this very crime, then the state failed to show you the evidence that you need. Because I did not commit this crime.
I'm like, it was a drinking game at one point, right? It was the prosecution that actually went first, right? Laid out the strong evidence in detail, be it scientific or religious. Take a look.
Everyone told you that she said things like she didn't need to repent, she didn't need forgiveness, she could do whatever she wanted now, that she was in a celestial state, translated, that she is spiritually and physically changing, that she's above the priesthood, that she knew who was dark and evil. You saw those text messages both about Charles and heard from people, as well as about Brandon and Zach and Adam. People who were helping Charles were also dark or Z's. And ultimately, what did we learn? That she associated herself with Nephi, a prophet, a holy man, who was justified and asked by God to kill Laban. What we know is that Lori Vallow thought she was like Nephi, that she was justified in killing Charles. That her brother, who was supposed to be like her, was also justified in killing Charles. But Lori Vallow is not justified under Arizona law, nor is Alex. We know from the physical scene itself that Charles did not use a bat. We know from the physical evidence of Alex's 1-inch cut to his head and the lack of blood or concussion, the lack of damage to the mirrors, the walls, the location of the bat in relation to Charles, they all tell us that Charles did not use a bat. We know that Charles was a semi-professional baseball player. This would not have ended that way if he had had a bat. But even if you somehow think that he did have a bat and he was swinging it at Alex, the defendant, whoever, he still was not justified in shooting him when he was on the ground. The jury instructions tell you to use reason, common sense, and experience. Charles Vallow is dead today because this defendant and her brother Alex Cox conspired to kill him. They planned it out, and they had their weapons, and they orchestrated a way to ensure that Charles was back in the house where he was shot and killed for money and Chad Daybell. The evidence proves to you that Lori Vallow Daybell is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and the state asks you to hold her accountable and find her guilty.
And then it's up to them, right? Literally, the jury's then just like, off you go. And they got to figure out, what do we do now? What I think they usually do first is they settle in, put their bags down, put their stuff on the table, and then look around and say, should we go around the table and do a vote? Because oftentimes that is what happens. And there are times when they all vote one way on that first go-round. It's why you can have a 6-minute guilty verdict, which we have seen before, right? Not in this case. They haven't started yet. It's going to happen tomorrow. But I want to bring in two people who know this story better than anyone. Lindsay Holler is the producer of my podcast, Drop Dead Serious. She was in court all day watching this happen today. And Gigi McKelvey is the host of the podcast Pretty Lies and Alibi. She's been living this nightmare for 6 years now. All right, to the two of you, thank you so much for joining me. Lindsay, I'm going to start with you. What was the reaction of the jurors to Lori's closing argument and the myriad objections, one after the other?
I think the jury today was soaking it all in, and I think also at this point they were used to this. This is not the first time she's been objected to. They've been laughing in the past. It was a little bit hard to see today. I will say overall they were poker-faced, but it's hard not to have a reaction when you're seeing that happen.
Yeah, Gigi, the old expression is you can either win or lose a case in openings, or you can win or lose a case in closings. And when you see objection after objection, even if you're used to it from a bungling lawyer who's not a lawyer, it tends to have an effect. What are your estimations of the performance of the prosecutor next to the performance of Lori Vallow?
It's night and day. Lori's not an attorney. And at times we saw her make this very personal as opposed to what a real defense attorney would do, which would be attack the witnesses on cross-exam. Lori made it personal. As I was there for 2 weeks, saw the jury get tickled a few times when she was objected to. And so I assume today they had plenty to laugh at with the number of objections. You know, the judge at one point was like, again, objection, or, you know, sustained. I mean, it was just nonstop. It was almost embarrassing for her, but not really.
Yeah, at this point, I think Lindsay has a point, right? That they've been watching this rodeo for a couple weeks, so they're almost immune to the effect of the constant objections. I will say almost, because I still think you've got to stick the landing, and that's not sticking the landing. So, Lindsay, one thing I think our viewers, if they haven't watched every inch of the trial, might be surprised to hear is that this jury never heard that she's a convicted murderer 3 times over and that she killed her own kids. Can you explain why that is, that they didn't hear in a murder trial that she's already a child murderer?
Well, they couldn't hear it in this case because it could only come out if Lori testified or if she opened herself up to it by her own questions during cross-examination. And that didn't happen. But it was very interesting because there were a few times where Kay Woodcock used JJ in the past tense form. She said, the last time I saw him was on this date, which is clearly past. So they have to be wondering what's going on with that and why we haven't heard from Tylee, who Lori says, you know, is her best witness.
Yeah, and Gigi, that's a big deal because you can refer to kids in past tense, but if any of these Arizona jurors didn't follow what happened last year in Idaho, they might just be confused by it all. But sometimes the confusion is frustrating enough to be angry with somebody who won't, you know, be straight with you, like Lori wasn't being straight with these jurors.
Yeah, and I saw that in the 2 weeks there, specifically what Lindsay mentioned when Kay used JJ in the past term, and Lori did as well with Tylee and JJ when she was on cross-exam. There was one male juror that really, you could see the gears were turning when Kay said, I last saw JJ in May of 2019. So it's very evident there is a big elephant in the room these jurors are not hearing about. And I do think as the trials progress, we've seen that sort of click in a way that they know there's something very big missing. And boy, are they going to be in for a big surprise once they render a verdict and find out exactly who Lori Daybell is.
Oh boy, you're not kidding, especially if it's a not guilty verdict. Can you imagine if they render a not guilty verdict only to find out that she thought the same dark spirits existed in her kids right before they were, you know, dead, dismembered, and buried in a pet cemetery and not far away from the pet cemetery? Okay, Lindsay, one other thing that is sort of interesting is that we all saw over and over Lori's brother, Alex, and his comments on the body cam to the police when the police responded to this shooting. And yet, if I'm not mistaken, no one in that courtroom, those jurors, did not see Alex's body cam, and they didn't see, like, Tylee's body cam statements either when she was taken in for questioning after the shooting as well. Did anyone explain that? Did that ever kind of make sense to anyone? Like, how did that play out?
Well, Lori definitely tried to explain it to the jury and was objected to because it was specifically ruled that those statements cannot come in. In both cases, it's hearsay. And I believe the prosecutor also filed a few motions that you can't benefit from the testimony of someone that you were convicted of murdering. So in Tylee's case, that's why. The jurors did see Alex's body cam. He was on mute, so you really couldn't hear that. But Lori definitely leaned into that. That was one of her patterns in her cross-examination. This is what the state hasn't shown you. Tylee was interviewed. Alex was interviewed. They're hiding stuff from you. That was definitely part of her game plan today.
Oh, it's so frustrating. All the little, you know, hiccups when it comes to criminal procedure. It's not simple. It's not like you can just walk into court and say anything at any time. There are strict rules, and Lori didn't seem to understand that throughout a lot. But look, for a woman who's not a lawyer, she seemed to get enough out there anyway. To the both of you, thank you so much, Lindsay Haller and Gigi McKelvey. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.